I can be the gardener, that is all about self-caring for me, that like nourishes your plant and yourself. And I can be the warrior, as in fierce and feisty, and I will always stand up against injustice, always stand up against injustice, and always will speak truth to power. And I can be both, and I don't have to choose to be either or. They're both part of me, and they're both my truth.
Welcome to Mindful Dream Podcast. We help you to not lose sight of what's really important while chasing your dreams. Today's guest is very special. It's Zainab Salbi. She fled Iraq when she was 19 years old to live in America, and from there she founded Women for Women International, which has helped over 500,000 women refugees across the planet. These are people from the Middle East, from Bosnia, and places like the Democratic Republic of Congo. She served people who were suffering from the worst of humanity, but she said that she also found the best of humanity while she was there. Oprah Winfrey named her as one of the 25 women changing the world. She's authored multiple books, including Between Two Worlds and Freedom is an Inside Job. She's currently the host of the Redefined Podcast, as well as Chief Awareness Officer of the Find Center and co-founder of Daughters of the Earth. This is a really special conversation, and I hope you enjoy listening and hearing her amazing stories. Please be aware that Zainab talks about some sensitive topics during this podcast as a result of the time she spent in war zones. Welcome to Mindful and Driven, Zainab. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's good to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
So I think of all my guests so far, I think you're the person who's most inspiring to me, at least, in terms of all the change you've made, especially with your work with Women for International. And now you're building a new thing with Find Center. And it's a strong alignment with my own values and what I do. I know on Find Center what you're trying to do is present a wide variety of opinions. What are something which you personally see quite a lot of that you disagree with, which advice people give in order to help find balance?
That's a very good question. Well, there's one, and maybe it's not very, very concrete, but a very big spiritual life coach in America once told me that everything is about love. Everything is innocence trying to meet love. And that, in her example, was included her father who molested her as a child. It includes someone who cheats on their partner. It includes the thief who steals, right? Everything is innocence trying to meet love. It's not that I disagree with that ultimate truth. I do agree with that ultimate truth. But that truth is on a spiritual level. And I think as we expand in our spirituality, we still need to be grounded in this earth and in this idea of being a human and in the pain and the suffering of others. And at the time when that was told to me, I was working with women in Democratic Republic of Congo who were being gang raped, cut, molested, and lost everything. And if I go and tell them that everything is innocence trying to meet God, they would have spit on my face and they would have be deserving. I would have been deserving rather of that spit, right? And so for me, it's a long-winded answer, but when we get to a spiritual state of where love is indeed bigger than all, it's indeed, where, and it's beautiful, we have to anchor ourselves rather in humility and humbleness and the presence of being in this world. So my answer would be, please come back to this earth. We need you to be human, not a spiritual being in that other space. Because in being human, And even to talk to someone's pain, it doesn't have to be as severe as the women who are being raped in the Democratic Republic of Congo. It could be your own pain today because someone hurt you. For me to tell you, honey, is all about love, is insensitive, and it is not grounded, and it is to a certain extent arrogant. And so it's not that I disagree with any particular teachings. It's more I'm saying any and all teachings must be grounded in this idea of being human. And when we separate ourselves from that, and when we think we have arrived to enlightenment, and we think that we disconnect ourselves from the pain and suffering of our own and of others, then we have disconnected ourselves from reality. And so always be grounded, in this idea of being human, in this body of being human, on this earth with all of its life experiences.
I think with that, it's about making sure people feel that they're being heard. Because if somebody's in pain and you're telling them your pain doesn't matter, it's all okay because of another reason, you're invalidating their feelings, which doesn't help them. I think it's so often really important to make people feel like they're safe. Before you try to solve their problems, before you try to find a deeper meaning, it's make sure they feel safe. And then you can work with them in the longer term when they recover. But I just said, if somebody is telling you that your problems aren't important, and it's even if it is, like you said, a much smaller problem, that person then, it makes them feel less safe inside, where that's not what anybody wants to achieve, right? And like I said, it's at some level, for some people who've got very spiritual and they've been able to lead a life which leads them down that path, there's going to be some privilege that some of them might have. And it's just really important to make sure they're listening to other people and what they might not have that you have. And if they can't see things the way you can see yet, then that's valid too.
That's beautiful. That is true. I mean, I have a friend who argues that what we need to practice is generously listen to each other. And, she founded a foundation called the Vuslat Foundation, which all about how can we practice generous listening. And generous listening, in her argument is not only, listening to the people we agree with, but also listening, and as what you're saying, with people who we radically disagree with, in a way that is providing generosity in our spirit to listening to their story and their pain and their perspective from a 360 degrees, rather than interfering in our own and bringing our own assumptions, let's say it, and our own even enlightenment and our own awareness or whatever, but to generously listen to all of their stories, and from there find a place of a common connection or a common understanding. And sort of that's what you're saying, is that, I guess this is how therapists work, or shamans or whatever, because they see so many stories. And if you tell everyone, it's like, why can't you get it over with? Like it's all about love, then you're not generously listening to that person, and you're not building safety for that person to be seen and heard and to go through their pain. And then from there, you actually show a path forward and a path where there is healing. I mean, I think, it's so interesting because in this era, frankly, of, where there is many more people who are into spiritual path and into enlightenment. And, there's so much more use of psychedelics, in the world and all of that the good side, and I believe everything has a light and a shadow. Everything has so the light side is that it's healing. It is creating more consciousness and more connection to ourselves, to our hearts, to each other, to the plants, to the planet rather, to God, to nature, to everything. That's the good side. On the other side, the dangers of all of that is when we lose, again, the groundedness, when we lose the roots of who we are, of being grounded in this reality, is that we can become disconnected from our reality and arrogant, and that is scary for me, because it reinforces the sense of superiority. over the other, right? It can reinforce the sense of I am better than you, or even reinforces the power in a new manifestation of power, or power. If power used to be about military power, and then it became financial power, and then it became an intellectual power, this brings spiritual power over the other. And that's all the shadow side of that awakening and enlightenment. And so, and to avoid being shy, because that's an entrapment for anybody who is seeker, because it's, to arrive to a blissful moment in your heart is an amazing experience. So I think it is a challenge for any seeker. How do you keep that bliss? You arrive in that momentary arrival, to your heart center and to your finding your own center. And between how do you not get it into your head and say, I am the one and I am the enlightened? And how do you make sure that you continue in the humbling, servicing journey of being in service as a seeker to awakening and to awareness?
People often say ignorance is bliss, and I think sometimes that's what happens to some of these people, where because they close their ears, they can't see the bad things in the world, they can't hear the bad things in the world. So they're happy, but that means that they can't help those people and they can't serve other people in the world. And I know you've done a lot of that in your life. Has there been any point in the past you felt a bit overwhelmed by that? Because you have to feel so strong in yourself to be able to give that when you've worked with people in the Congo, for example. It must be so difficult to be in that situation, be able to stay strong for the people around you who need you.
Have I been in this situation? A lot. As you mentioned, I work in war zones for 20 years in my life. And I grew up in a war zone for second 10 years of my life. And then I reported on war zones as the last 10 years of my life. So I have 40 years out of my 52 years living and breathing and talking in wars. And war shows you the worst act of humanity. I have seen and witnessed and talked with people. I have goosebumps as I share this, which I never thought that humans can do such dark acts, and it's scary. Like I've talked to, not only the victims of rape, as I mentioned earlier, or of war and displacement and pillaging and burning and killing. I've also talked to the killers and the rapists. And that is, it's easier to work with the victims, honestly, because it's just, someone else has violated them. And it's heartbreaking experience. I think it's even more of a heartbreaking experience to talk with the killers and the rapists. And it's weird to say that, but you see the victims are intact. Their souls are intact. They have endured violation, but their souls is intact. Is injured because of the violation, but they have not violated themselves or others, right? The ones who create the violation, they are disconnected from the essence of who their soul. They're disconnected from their heart. As one woman who told me about her rapist in Iraq, just before he raped her, she was a 16-year-old child. And she looked at him and she's like, please, please, please don't rape me. Don't you have a heart? And he looks at her in the eyes and he says, my heart died long time ago. And he pursues to rape her. And that, I can't get it out of my head. Like, that's awareness even that his heart is dead, right? So that is, for me, has always been overwhelming, incredibly sad. I would have, every time I would encounter these stories, I would come back to home and, honestly, I would just cry and cry and cry for hours until the tears get drier, and then, dust the dust from my shoulder and keep going. Now, what kept me going and what keeps me going until today is I believe in also human goodness. I have, in the darkest experiences, I have seen the most beautiful aspects of humanity, unbelievable, generous aspects of humanity, unbelievable love and the strength of love, unbelievable resilience and courage and the strength of that resilience and courage. And that, just keeps me going. Because if a mother who malicious chop her legs into pieces and ask her children to eat it, afterwards end up, putting an artificial leg and is the woman who taught me how to dance. Who am I not to dance? And if the mother who have lost all of her kids killed in front of her and by a miracle she stayed alive, she sings and she teaches me how to sing, who am I not to sing? And if a woman who puts a lipstick on just so to make sure that she's beautiful before the sniper kills her, teaches me about the importance of beauty, who am I not to appreciate beauty? So what keeps me going is that these are, not famous people. These are everyday people. And that strength in humanity and that love in humanity is so powerful that most definitely keeps me going as I encountered darkness in a severe way throughout my life.
I guess you've seen both the worst and the best of humanity then through the work you did. And yeah, I almost need to take a second to just process that, because it's incredible the experiences you've had. Was there ever a time where you considered going away from war zones and going back to the comforts you had, or did then thought just never cross your mind?
No, I didn't know what the middle means. I grew up in war and then I ended up working in war. So it was more, I had come to learn how to live in peace. I just didn't know how to live in peace, which meant that there was always water to shower whenever you can. And there was always clothes to get whatever you want. And you can always joy in a material way, as in, food and parties and music whenever you want. And I really didn't know. And as in sleeping in silence without sounds of bullets outside. I really, truly did not know for the longest time how to adjust to that, and I guess that's my trauma. Because when we live in trauma, and this happens to be mine, someone else may have different kinds of trauma, maybe they're abused or beaten up as a child, or and then they don't know what it means to live in without that. Or maybe you grew up in an unloving family, and so you don't understand what being in love means, or in a loving and safety. And my trauma happens to be, I lived in wars and there was always in safety. And and it took me a really long time, really, really long time to understand how to even take a nap without the sounds of bullets outside, And what transformed me and what helped me was love. Truly, love of people, love of friends, love of family, love of a spouse, that were just there. And, sort of at one point, I looked at friends and family around me who were there, in love, in hard moments in life. And I'm just like, I am safe. I'm safe. And I think I can live. And it's okay for me to live in peace. And as in, it's not that I didn't live in it before. I lived in America for 30 years now, right? It is to being adjusted to that life of peace, because as I lived in America, I worked in war zones and reported in war zones, right? So it was just truly recently, as in the last 2 years, to realize it is okay. It is okay to live that life in peace, and to live a life that about the suffering of others. You show up for them when you can, but you should show up, do not ignore the suffering of others, but show up in a way that does not squeeze your soul, which is what I did for 30 years. I squeezed my soul and gave all of me to the suffering of others. And it left me with a lot of people being impacted by the work in a good way, which is wonderful and I'm grateful for. But it also left me empty. And then the taste of life was gone from me. And I have learned that this is not the way to give, that this giving is an extreme way of giving, that it leaves you empty, and that the cause one is working on, any cause, mine was helping women in wars, a parent could be to raise his or her child, does not require you to self-sacrifice. The cause does not require you to self-sacrifice. And I really have come the long way to allow myself to do self-care, not as a frivolous act or a selfish act, and not as an external act, as in getting a massage or a manicure, pedicure, but as an inner act, as in, I need to keep my soul in a healthy way. And I have my, rules for how do I do that, or my learnings on how do I keep my soul, how do I care for my soul, let's say it this way, right? And they have no material connections to it. They have no actions. They are like about being and perhaps doing things that will get me to that place. So my self-care evolved from, first of all, I did not know. First of all, I rejected it. Second, then I thought it's a massage. And then the third, now I'm in a state where self-care is really about connecting to my heart every day, as in meditating, that showing gratitude every day, as in noticing all the good things that are happening, including my plant right now has some new blossoms and I'm excited about it, right? As in, exercising and taking care of my body, and that's important. As in drinking lots of water, which is important for me. As in eating healthy food, which is, so the meaning of self-care moved, as in walking in nature and being in the presence of nature, as in being in the presence of art, which is important for me. So it evolved from massages to basic practices that like available for anybody. Like it has no material connection to it. I don't need to pay anybody to like make an appointment with my heart and meditate for 20 minutes. Do you see what I mean? Or drink lots of water. So, and over time, I have come to learn that I can be the gardener, that is all about self-caring for me. The God like nourishes your plant and yourself, and I can be the warrior, as in fierce and feisty, and I will always stand up against injustice, always stand up against injustice, and always will speak truth to power. And I can be both, and I don't have to choose to be either or. They're both part of me, and they're both my truth.
I really like that, because I think many people would see what you did for 30 years and think, how is that possible? And they would then try to emulate it and try to give all of themselves to help other people because they think that's the right thing to do. So for you, who's been there and done that, to then say, actually, that was unhealthy in many ways and you can do it more sustainably, I think is such a good message for people out there who worry about the world, because many people do worry about the world. They have, as you say, different causes that they believe in. And there's this anxiety, I think, among some people that they're not doing enough. And it's kind of a vicious circle, because if you worry about not doing enough, then you're draining yourself, which means that you're less able to do more to help the cause that you believe in. So, as you said, it's so important to look after yourself, because that makes you be able to give more to the cause. So you've got to be a good gardener to feed yourself so that you can then be the warrior.
That's beautiful. Really beautifully said. And to be honest, when I was only the warrior, and, again, I'm using my life, but I think everyone is a warrior in their own lives. If you're a workaholic, you're a warrior, no matter what the job is, right? When I was only that, and then I reach a point where I'm operating out of an empty space I'm exhausted, emotionally, physically exhausted. That giving from that place of scarcity and emptiness becomes tasteless, joyless, and even bitter. And it's impatient, it is like the taste of life goes. And when you give out of a full place in you, right, that giving is effortless. It doesn't take anything from you because you're full, it's you surf it, because you can give as much as you can. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what people take from you when you are full, because you're full. There's plenty, when your people take the smallest thing, when you're in scarce state, as in exhausted, you're like resentful because, there's nothing to give and they want. And so I really learned that. It's interesting that I bring Congo a lot today, but I learned that I was one time, in one visit, I was in a very healthy state in my, I was just, was doing good. And I go to this village, and this is before I opened an office through Metformin in Congo. And so I was just doing research, and I was asking these villagers, who all gathered in a circle to answer my questions. A lot of questions to understand the situation. I was doing basically fact checking. I'm not understanding of the situation. And at the end, I said, thank you so much for your time. I can't promise you that I come back to you because I'm still in the research phase. And even if I ever come back to Congo, I can't promise that I will come back to your village, because it's going to be other indicators to what we're going to focus on. But I want to tell you, I really appreciate all the answers that you gave me and the time you gave me. And because you never fool around with other people's hope, never fool around with hope, especially when they are in a dire situation. So that's very important. So then the chief, I remember saying, we actually want to thank you. And I'm like, but I haven't done anything. I just asked you questions and took a lot of your time. He says, your smile gave us hope. And your just presence in this smiley way and positive and trying to find answers really gives us hope that there is goodness possible and that goodness may come. And I tear up just talking about it, because in that case, I did not do anything. I was really in presence, right? And I'm not always like that. I haven't been to stay like that all the time. But now I have come to value that state, to value that staying in the presence of your full self, as in being full, being rested, being meditative, being, healthy self is the goal, because the giving out of it, this, and the manifestation of your career and your accomplishments is a much easier process than when you are operating out of a very scarce place in life.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I want to take a quick break to ask you to check in on yourself. There's many people struggling with balance, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. The tips that my guests and I share can hopefully help you along the way, but if you already feel overwhelmed or burnt out, it's probably best that you ask somebody for help too. For some, this might be a friend or family member, but others might feel like they have nobody they can talk to. If you're one of these people, check out the link in the show notes. It's for United for Global Mental Health. They've got helplines all across the world with people willing to listen on the other side. It's important to let somebody know how you're feeling. Now, back to the show. Looking at today, where you've got a much better balance than you had before, do you feel like you're in the right place now, or is there still things you're working on where you've got the struggles and you're not completely comfortable yet? Do you feel like you've made the full journey and now you do feel safe and you do feel, as you said, happy to have a nap without the sound of gunshots?
It's a very good question. I mean, as you know, I am Chief Awareness Officer of Find Center, a platform that is all about making the different paths of healings available to anybody who is seeking. And it's not about providing only meditation or only yoga or only this. It's basically saying, here are all the traditions and here are all the wisdom of all time. Some have been forgotten. Some are not famous people of today, and from different traditions, from different cultures, different backgrounds. Here's all what has been out there throughout time in one place. And you navigate, like here's the source information that we have make available for you to navigate your personalized journey. So if you are scientifically oriented, you can look into science and spirituality and healing. I grew up a Muslim. I am a Muslim, and I'm always curious about the spiritual aspects of Islam. Like, can I be a spiritual Muslim? And while still understanding and appreciating and practicing yoga and meditation, but I'm curious about spirituality in my own traditions. And so that's what Find Center does, is bring all that wisdom of all time in one place to make it easily for people to navigate their own personal healing, right? Of personal journey of healing. Now, I'm in that state, and I'm in that part of that process because I arrived to a place in my heart that I could find such profound connection to my heart, to nature, to God, to each other. And it came from me staying in presence. I call it me connecting to my heart and getting to learn the language of my heart. And that happened because of a state of a year and a half where I was ill and I lost my ability to communicate, and all what I could focus is on meditating and painting and playing music. Like, that's all what I could accomplish, right? And that led me to finding bliss and by walking in nature, and finding joy by meditating for 20 minutes, and finding my happy day is when I'm eating healthy and drinking lots of water, right? So I was like, whoa, you can arrive to such joyful moments without going to this retreat or taking that class or going to this country or buying that shirt. Wow. I mean, you can go to there. And I decided to dedicate my life to contribute to people who are interested to connect to their hearts, to each other, to the divine, and to nature in a different way, right? Now that I am in this state, do I slip? Most definitely I slip. I don't think anybody doesn't slip, but who cares? I'm telling about you, but me. Do I go and, we live in a world where things are pushed on us. Everything induces comparison to others. Everything. Social media, the news, the stores, the magazines, everything induces what I don't have and what you have, or what others have, right? Like that split and schism is like reinforced on us in a very extreme form of a capitalism. So do I slip and, slip and buy more than I need, or slip meditating? Of course. The only difference is my bounce back rate is faster right now, right? I go back, because when I slip, and let's say I'll give you I go to the city and I'm like buying things I don't need because the city pushes that on you, buy. So I live in New York City, or eat unhealthy food because it's a good restaurant, but whatever, unhealthy, or not drink enough water, I slip. It's a day I slip, right? Or not meditated that day. And sometimes all of them happen at the same time. The slip of all my rules, right? It's within less than 24 hours that I feel bad. I feel I'm not healthy. I'm not happy. Yes, I got all these external things, but because it's not who I am. So I notice the discrepancy very fast, right? Okay, so that's one. And the second is, I was like, okay, oh, you slipped, my threshold, because the closer you are to that blissful moment, or state, the more you slip, the slip becomes, is felt faster and more potent, if you may, right? So now I slip all the time, man. I slip all the time, I just, my correction is faster. And so I was like, oops, need it back. And then it takes me a day or two to come back to my center, and I'm okay. And something happens, a trip comes or friends come. And again, I slip, and then, slipped, come. And I feel, to quote Rumi, a 13th century Sufi poet, he says, if the hand is always a fist or is always open, there is no growth. The growth is when sometimes we're closed and sometimes we're open. The growth is in the movement. And so I'm not judgmental of my slip. I'm just more aware of it and I try to correct it much more. And, when I see other people slip, frankly, I'm more patient with it also because I was like, oh, it's okay. That the correction is in the movement or the growth is in the movement.
And that really gets to the point of what message I want to get through this podcast is I get people on who people often look up to and idolize, and they can think of them as perfect. Whereas somebody knowing that somebody who's done so much in life and who's now looking at so much spirituality and all these different ideas that you can slip too, and then you come back, it makes them feel less bad, because I think there's often a shame cycle of somebody makes a few positive life changes, and then the first time something goes wrong, they're like, oh, I can't do it. Like, they can do it, but I can't do it because I've made the mistake. And the truth is, everybody makes mistakes. Nobody can be in this blissful state for their entire lives. But all you're trying to do is recover quicker, as you said. And I think this idea of, instead of focusing on avoiding all the blips, is how can you recover from the blip faster, is quite a positive mindset shift that a lot of people could make of, it's okay to mess up, but it's not beating yourself up too much so that you can then go back to the healthy state of mind that you were in before.
Well, it's beautifully said. I mean, I would say, to add to what you're saying, find what gives you that bliss and find it. I have a lot of friends who find that bliss only when they are not in their reality. So when they are traveling on vacation, they are in a bliss. The minute they come back to their home, they're not in, or their lives, they are not in a bliss. That's not bliss. That's distraction. That is momentary distraction. You're going on vacation in a beach somewhere. That's beautiful. You can't stay in that state. Like, even if you move to that beach, you still have to work and then come back to your real, right? So for me, that is not bliss. That is just a break from our reality to give our palate cleanser to our brain, right? The bliss for me, or not the bliss, the testament for me, the measurement is, how am I scoring? How am I feeling when I am alone in the middle of a dark night? Am I okay with myself in that moment, in that intimate space between me and myself? Am I okay or not, right? So the bliss we have, find the path. What gives you that bliss? I know mine. I call it 7 rules for a happy day. Not a happy life, a happy day. Drink lots of water, eat healthy, exercise, be in touch with nature, do something in the art, call family and friends, and live your purpose. Do something that is true to yourself, right? Now, what is your 7 rules, or 3, or 1 rule, right? What brings you that state of joy? And don't make them external, make them internal. Find it. Then you'll get there. Maybe you'll go. I used to go to retreats a lot. Go to retreats. I'm not against retreats. Retreats help you taste what it means to be in that bliss. For the longest time, I would put the same music on that would help my brain remember that blissful feeling I had when I was in a retreat, right? So just train yourself, find it first, then try to replicate it. So if it's a song or a piece of music that helps you get to that state of mind, play it all the time. If it's a smell of sage that if you smell it, get it to do that all the time. Like I said, doing gradually these things, right? It wasn't boom, immediately. So I would train my mind, it's when I exercise, I'm feeling bliss, then do that all the time. Oh, when I'm meditating, I'm feeling bliss, do that all the time, so taste it, try to develop the taste buds in your senses, basically, to taste that bliss. Then once you arrive there and try to figure it out and put not structure to it, but identify it, then say, okay, I know how to get there. Now, after that, live life, right? And life by default is going to hit you, because that's life. It's not only the good, life is also the bad and the ugly. There's going to be a colleague who's going to annoy the heck out of you, or it's going to be a family member who says something that just, ouch, hurts you, or whatever it is, right? Or some bad day in electronics. So it doesn't. Now, these are slipping days, right? Normal. All of us go through it. go back. So now I then go back into the practice. Oh, if I walk in nature, I know I'll feel better. Oh, if I exercise, I know I'll feel. So I go into what I remember makes me feel better. Or if I just burn some sage and put Max Richter music on, I'll feel better, right? Like, whoa, that helps me go fast, bounce back faster to the place of bliss is of contentment. It's not bliss even, it's of contentment. When life as is good enough, right? When life is as is. It's so interesting because we take life for granted. We get so excited, let's say when we buy this sweater, and like, oh my God, that day I'm excited. That minute I buy it, that day I get out of the store, I am excited. At the day I'm wearing it, I'm excited. And 5 months later, I'm miserable because I don't have this and this and this. But I forget the excitement I had when I got my sweater, right? So I actually think things are right there in front of all of us. We just take them for granted. And we forget the joyful moments. So now one of the things that helps me go back to the bliss is actually I look at the sweater, I was like, oh my God, remember how I felt when I got this sweater or I got this sofa? And oh my God, I was in so much joy. And boom, I'm back to it. Right? So, these are small tricks we do in our minds, but it's possible and it works. At least it works for me.
I think when I was younger, I always used to go and travel because, like I said, I needed a distraction. But at the time, I thought that was bliss. And I think as I've grown older, one thing that I like to always think about is like living a life you don't need to escape from. Because if you need to go on vacation to feel content or to feel blissful, there's something wrong in your daily life. And that's why I really like your 7 rules there, because it's something you can do every day. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter what's going on. And I think that's such a healthier attitude to take, where it's not about, I'll be happy if I buy this, I'll be happy if I buy that, or I'll be happy if I go here. It's about, what have I already got that made me happy before? And why have I stopped appreciating that? Why don't I'm trying to think about things in my own house, like where when I got my desk, for example, and I didn't have to sit on the sofa and type away there, that made such a difference. But then now I'll complain about the desk or I'll be thinking about other things. So I think it's always a good thing to remember to go back. And another exercise I like to do as well is where if you think about a sweater, for example, when you think about how amazing is it that you can even have that sweater, about all the different people that have contributed to that. It's when we look at the world and there's all these amazing things that have happened and things that people have built, but we just take them for granted. We walk past these buildings that have been built by hundreds of people. And isn't it amazing that that's even possible? If we lived a few hundred years ago or a few thousand years ago, they'd be amazed. So sometimes having that ignorant mindset about just being able to reset yourself and think, how did that even happen? How has that even got to me? I think can really bring back their appreciation.
Exactly. It's right there in front of us. And we forget all the time. So exactly. Honestly, I think it's a mental exercise, of just, what if we are joy for no reasons? Why do we have to always have a reason to be joyful? Why? Right? Why, what if I am joy for no reason and all the reasons? It is impossible. I think we live in this world where especially, in a celebrity-driven world, and we have this manufactured idea or image, that is life is perfect. Now, I happen to know a lot of celebrities in my life, and everyone is suffering the same way. Everyone is talking the same way. Everyone is having their issues with their lives, and everyone is having. It's just the persona we see on TV, it's just different. It's a persona. It's just a persona. It's a true aspect. It's not a lie, but it's just an aspect of our life, right? You see me on TV, it is who I am, but it is maybe 10% of who I am or 30% of who I am. I am also this other things, I am also this other feelings. It's not only that persona. And so we just have to get out of that comparison, because I think that's when it's, giving us meaning of things outside of us and not inside of us, and giving us meaning of things we acquire by materially buying things as opposed to by acquiring within ourselves, And what I can tell you, if I just a normal woman who is from Baghdad, Iraq, and got displaced, been raped, succeeded and failed in my career, lived and died in my life, can find a connection to my heart center in a way that is I'm grateful for, so can everyone. So can everyone. There is nothing special about my journey. None. If anything, there was maybe, depends on who you're talking with and which culture and which country, the sadness is perhaps some more than others and less than others as well. But if I could arrive to my heart center, so can everyone. I believe that.
Yeah, and I think that's what you talked about there with you only see 10% of you on TV. And it's the same for everybody. Like, everybody's so multidimensional. We can pass somebody in the street and we can think they're so happy, but we don't know about all the other things going on in their lives. And it's also when you seek to be understood by other people, it's difficult for them to see all of your different layers as well. So like even during this conversation, we've talked about like your work in the Congo, but then we've also talked about you loving the smell of sage. And it's not that you have to have this narrow definition of who you are as a person, which I think sometimes people look at it as like they want their like whole story to fit into like a Twitter bio. And that's just not the way we work. We've got all these different things that sometimes don't quite make sense together, but it's who you are. And that's okay that it doesn't fit nicely into a box and people can wrap it up and say, this is who Zainab is, or this is who this person is, because we're hard to label in that way, but we keep trying to do it anyway for some reason.
It's true. It's very, very true. And so it's upon each one of us to break that bondage off, as Rumi says, and dance and say, I am not only this and I am not only that. I am all of it and none of it. It's my favorite, one of my favorite poems. It says, dance when you are broken open. Dance when you broke the bandage off. Dance in the middle of the battlefield. Dance when you are completely free. And, so break the bandage often of what the society is telling us, or cultures. It's not even society. It's a structural economy that's, that this is where institutions can make money. So it's not society by default. It's just our economic system. And we are a product of that, but it also ultimately replies and responds to us. And so the more we break from that bandage, the more the system adjusts and accommodate to where we are. You see what I mean? So do we fly in someone else's orbit, or do we have the economic system fly in our orbit? When I first enrolled in Instagram, and I was like, you build your followers and and I was like, I'm playing someone else's game. This is not my game. I'm playing someone else's game. How does life look like? And what does it mean if I'm playing my game, and let the economic structures come to me to accommodate my game?
It's been a pleasure to talk to you, Zainab. Where can the listeners hear more about you and what you do?
Well, I do recommend everyone to go to findcenter.com. That's where you can listen to my podcast, Redefined, where I interview people from all walks of life, from Hugh Jackman to Annie Lennox to Rev. Angel, Kyoto Williams, and where you can also look at what I've been working on for the last year and a half, bringing with my colleagues and friends, bringing wisdom of all time in one place for everyone to curate their own journey of healing.
Perfect. The question I always end up on is, and you can say that you don't even need a reason for this as well, is what's one small thing that's brought you joy recently?
What's one small thing that brought me joy recently? It's so easy. I mean, this morning, I went on my bike for 25 minutes. It's so simple. It's so simple. It's my morning. And I was like, I loved that exercise. I was all sweaty and my heart is pumping. And I was like, I felt joy. I mean, I'm not joking. I drank my 2 liters of water. I was like, here, I have it always with me. I already drank 2 bottles of water. I was like, I felt great. I was like, I read my book. I try to start my morning not by checking my emails or reading the news. I start by reading a book, whatever book I'm reading, and then I meditate, and then I read a poem, and then I exercise, and that's when I hear the news. I promise you, it was a joyful morning just because I just simply did that.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I'd love it if you could leave me a 5-star review. It really helps to get the message out further. Wherever you're listening, it would be awesome if you could subscribe and to share on your social media channels. If you want to see more of my work and advice, you can find all of the links in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you have a lovely day.